So Chris, a quick question. Do you
just
think
a minute. Now, just to let you know, this is Professor Bill Davis. So we got Professor. I forgot. Chris is also a professor.
Yeah, I can tell the way brother was dropping it. You know, he needs all kind of form to be able to get the information out.
That's right.
So Chris, what do you think would be the possibility of the state of Pennsylvania passing a bill to support reparations, or for the state of Pennsylvania to actually pass a reparations bill to look at reparations for the state of Pennsylvania, or the Keystone State as it's commonly called?
Now, you asking me because I introduced such a bill?
I didn't know you had, so please share.
I'm the reparations guy in Harrisburg. So here's the answer. And pardon me for being a little cute, but as my mother would say, you got a 0% chance if you don't try.
Yep.
So I deeply believe in reparations, and you cannot talk about radical MLK, which is redundant in my book, without talking explicitly about reparations. And like anything else that would genuinely move Black folk forward, it moves society forward. There's nothing inherent in reparations that hurts any other people. Reparations is not an anti-white thing. It is an anti-white supremacy thing, but it's not an anti-white thing. Right. That's number one. Number two is, to answer your question in a little more depth, absolutely, we can do it. I don't think we're gonna do it in 2 years. I don't think we're gonna do it in 4 years. I don't know if we'll do it in 6 years, but I do know that unless and until we discuss reparations in good faith, substantively, with a broad array of folks, not just everyone who agrees with us, because, you know, let's be honest, Professor, there's a lot of Black folk who don't believe in reparations.
I'm clear.
Right? Mm-hmm. You know this, right? So until we have those meaningful conversations, we can't move forward. I'll give you an example. Just a couple years ago, you would never hear white people in mainstream society use the term white supremacy.
Right.
In this last election cycle, all the white candidates were talking about reparations and white supremacy. Now, it was in a very superficial way, but the fact that they used those terms, it validated their existence and the importance to address it. Now you have a centrist Democrat, Biden, who as a core part of his platform is at least talking about racial equity. Right. When no other candidate, including Barack Obama, was talking about racial equity.
Right.
Nobody. And so if we can't even use the words, if we got to whisper, oh, we're going to talk about white people, right? If we're still in that mindset, nothing is going to move forward. So this is the first time in my life, and I'm 50, where I've heard white folk in mainstream society talk about it in fairly non-defensive ways. The phenomenon that most Black folk have always known and like, duh. And we first have to do that because there's two reasons to introduce legislation, I believe, philosophically. One is to enact state law, obviously. Right. The other one is to start a conversation. If we don't have the numbers and we need 102 votes in the House and 26 in the Senate, we ain't got anywhere near that for reparations right now. I can't even get the majority of Black elected officials to get on my bill.
Wow.
Okay, that's where we are today.
Wow.
Until we have that conversation, we're not going to get any closer. And what I love is putting me in a room full of white people who don't really know what reparations is and come out with some folks like, yeah, we need that. And I'm talking about regular white folk. I'm not talking about woke white folk.
Right.
I'm not talking about deeply politicized white folk. Just give me some regular white folk.
So Chris, just a quick question. If HR 40 passes, and it seems as though it's the potential for that to happen is likely. If HR 40 passes and there's national legislation on reparations, do you think that would expedite the circumstance that you're facing there?
In the midterm and long term, yes. In the short term, absolutely not. But here's the other thing. It will validate the necessity and the rigor around that legislation, right? When HR 40 has been reintroduced, all the time for what, like 30, 40 years by Representative Conyers when he was in office, it was just a study. I know that studies are where good ideas go to die. There was a study in Pennsylvania on the death penalty. and a legislative research body was authorized to do the study. It took them 7 years to write a 200-page report that ultimately said the death penalty is problematic. Now, Professor, you are a learned man. Do you need 7 years and 40 pages to come to that conclusion? So sometimes studies can work in support of those folks who want to push things to the side. They said, oh man, we hear these loud black folk and radicals, we'll quiet them down with the study and then it'll take forever to get done. We don't need a study. Now we need deep evaluation of what, how reparations could be implemented, what the funding sources are, what the bodies are that move it forward, absolutely. But we don't need a study to decide if reparations is a real thing. And here's the last thing I wanted to say, because you got me all hopped up. The bill that I will be introducing, preferably within the next 2 years, is a bill that connects reparations to the complicity of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Right, exactly.
The state legislature, the court, and the executive branch on both slavery and systemic racism, not just slavery.
Right.
And one of the biggest hurdles is teaching my fellow legislators that there was slavery in Pennsylvania, and that slavery did not end in 1780. It took another 75 years to the last enslaved Pennsylvanian was freed. And so this is actually an opportunity to organize as members of communities of struggle, with Black folk at the forefront, talking about how and why we must have reparations for what it means to be aggrieved as Black Pennsylvanians in a state that had explicitly white supremacist laws for generations. And nobody knows this because when I took office 4 years ago, no one gave me a compendium of all the racist and misogynistic and xenophobic laws because it never existed. So what I'm going to do leading up to the introduction of this bill is lay out all the state laws that show that are the antecedents to all the racial disparities we acknowledge now in this state.
Excellent. Excellent. It can be a blueprint for what other states should do.
Okay.